and I heard this knock on the door. That's the knock of law enforcement. And they said, "We have a warrant for your arrest."
Anthony Bryant never thought much about growing up in the projects of Savannah, Georgia, or that his family was poor. His parents were devout Christians who took their 8 children to church every week. They worked hard to make sure they had enough to get by. Then in high school, Anthony saw another side of life.
When I began to wanting to date girls that were not from the project area, I began to notice that, hey, there's a big major difference. I got to do better.
He worked hard in school, hoping it would open doors to success. Then in his senior year, he got his girlfriend pregnant and married her. Needing a job, he followed his older brother's example and enlisted in the Army. He earned a position of trust handling highly classified information. It was a boost to his self-confidence and his ego.
I took great pride in that uniform, kept it in pristine condition. That power came in, and it's just unreal.
8 years later, he traded in his fatigues for a new uniform with the police department in Chatham County, Georgia, again following in his brother's footsteps. But soon, his brother and his family were the last people on his mind.
Failure definitely wasn't an option. My focus is my job, going to the next level professionally, and just being self-absorbed with Anthony.
Anthony became an exemplary officer. With his success came respect, accolades, and pride. But his focus on reputation came at a price, as his personal life began to suffer.
I'm still a good provider, but just not a good husband. As you build up power, you build up ego. You build up ego, you build up self-reliance on you.
His self-absorption led to having affairs and living a double life.
It was all appearances. You play the part, you show up for work, you do your job, and if you do it really well, then no one is going to question it. They're going to question it at all.
Sometime later, his older brother had a proposition to escort some drug runners through town. But Anthony never worried about getting caught because in his mind, he was untouchable.
You have that Superman complex. Can't happen to you. And you begin to justify things within your mind. I looked up to him and felt a type of allegiance towards him to say, okay, I'll do it.
30-year-old Anthony Bryant is admitting that he attempted to aid and abet the distribution of cocaine.
Very humiliating. It's just indescribable to know that you go from one extreme to the next extreme. It was the beginning of the fall for me.
Awaiting sentencing, Anthony decided to give his life to Christ, but on one condition.
Now I'm going to try this God that my mom raised me in. Okay, God, I gave my life to you. Now, don't allow me to go to prison.
2 months later, he was sitting in a cell with a 12-year prison sentence. But Anthony couldn't understand why.
God, you did not hear anything I said. My kids are going to grow up without their dad. My wife at that time, within a year, she filed for divorce. So I'm like, no, I'm done cashing out. Suicide.
For weeks, he hoarded aspirin from the infirmary and other inmates.
I was just going to take them all and just go to sleep and never wake up again. That was my plan. I heard this voice. The voice said, look under the mattress. And I pulled up the mattress and I saw this Bible. Took me that scripture where it talks about better is the ending of a thing than the beginning.
Finally, he understood that it wasn't all about him.
And said, God, I've tried it my way and I failed. And I flushed all those pills down the toilet. And I can focus on doing what you need me to do while I'm in here.
Anthony spent the rest of his time in prison studying scripture, leading prayer groups, and sharing his testimony. Since his release in 2008, he's continued to pursue the Lord and gives back to his community.
I teach ethics and responsibility classes to law enforcement. And through that, I use my personal testimony. That moment when I gave my life to him, it was a true transformation. God began to start working in my life even then. I can see where now God has placed me on even a higher platform. But the difference now is with him, I know how to exercise humility. God has definitely done a mighty work in my life. And, I'm grateful.